On some early season ball. Not a ton of it played this past week, but certainly some teams starting to emerge as contenders around South Jersey. Kevin, thanks for hopping on. Good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, Mike. How are you?
Doing well. I know you had a chance to check out Bishop Eustace later in the week, and a big win over Camden Catholic. How impressed were you with the Crusaders, and how loaded is this team this year?
Bishop Eustace is very good, and what the key to their success, and obviously the key to success for most teams is going to be pitching, and they're loaded with pitching. They've got three seniors who are all very, very good on the hill, and they swing the bats up and down the lineup. And yesterday they hit 4 home runs. They beat Camden Catholic. The thing that was a little startling at first was the fact that they had 10 strikeouts, and that's something that Coach Sam Tropiano knows that can't happen, and something they're going to have to clean up as far as what they're going to do at the plate. But once they got going a little bit yesterday, the hits started coming. Junior catcher Nate Steele had an outstanding game and kind of leading them, and they've got some all South Jersey caliber players. They have an all South Jersey outfielder in Nick Brown, who led South Jersey in home runs last year. The dynamite infield with Chris Jones at shortstop and Justin Hageman at third base, and then kind of a newcomer to the infield, and Ryan DeMayo at first and Steve DeBellis at second. So, I think Eustace is definitely a very good team. Pitching is going to carry them with Hageman and Elmer and a kid by the name of Tyler Phillips, who's heading to Manatee Junior College in Florida next year. So Eustace, this is a year where Eustace should be in the mix throughout the entire season, and I kind of expect some big things out of them.
It's almost crazy to say, but Eustace may be a team that gets even overlooked in non-public A just because you have Gloucester Catholic and you have St. Augustine. How good is that group in South Jersey? I mean, in talking to some area coaches, they feel like it's at its best this year, and certainly Eustace, one of those teams, and the two other I threw out there, elite programs as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the true South Jersey teams that compete in A, they're the three you look at, and clearly this year they are three dominant teams. And I haven't had a chance to see the Prep or Gloucester Catholic yet. Obviously, only a week in, but Gloucester Catholic returns everybody, just about everybody from that team from last year. Who that team reached the final and really thought it should have won that game. And kids on that team had played on Brook Lawn's two-time American Legion World Series championship team. So, I mean, year in and year out, Gloucester Catholic is loaded. They have more pitching depth than any team in South Jersey, maybe any team in the state. They're coming out of a tournament in Georgia over the past week where they lost 2 games, which will surprise a lot of people, but they're playing in a tournament down there in Emerson, Georgia, Louisville Slugger tournament, or against some very high-quality teams from across the state. So, I want to see what Gloucester Catholic does back here against the true South Jersey competition before I, put that into the mix. And then you look at the Prep, and that Mike Bylone's done a real nice job in developing that program, and they're a team that year in, year out at this point you got to consider into the mix. And they've also got themselves some very good, very talented players. Billy Chilari, a pitcher, heading to Duke's, only a junior. So, obviously when it comes to non-public A, they're the 3 teams you got really have to keep an eye on.
Checking in right now with Kevin Minnick from the Courier Post, talking some South Jersey baseball with Kevin. And, weather, obviously an issue, not a ton of games to cover, but he had a couple neat features this week, or going back to even last week. And I know you had a chance to catch up with Shane Kubrak from Paul VI. And, he's one of those guys, and, a lot of our listening audience is Cape Atlantic League. Maybe those listeners haven't heard of him, but certainly a kid to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Shane's a big kid. He's about 6'3", probably goes about 220, 225, and a pitcher, first baseman, plays a little outfield as well. And he's only a junior, but he's already committed to Wake Forest. And I think he's a kid that maybe a lot of people haven't seen yet because he didn't really play much varsity last year. But another kid that plays in these tournaments with club teams, travel programs, and as starts to turn some heads. And I think he's definitely one of the kids that we want to you kind of want to keep your eye on over the next 2 seasons.
What about Eastern? I mean, it's a program, obviously a ton of success. Flacco's gone, but this team still is excelling, still one of the teams to beat in South Jersey. Not necessarily the highest seed a year ago, but on one heck of a run a year ago. And, they just seem to find a way to get it done year in, year out, and certainly one of those teams that should contend again this year.
Yeah, when you look at South Jersey Group 4, they are right now they're a team to beat. They're the two-time defending champions. They were state champions 2 years ago, and yes, they lost to Flacco, but they bring in a couple of kids, a freshman by the name of Jack Herman, who's already got a scholarship to the University of Maryland. He got that even before he put on his uniform at Eastern. A very talented kid, and then you've got another kid, a sophomore, a third baseman by the name of Davis Schneider, and he's a kid who's really going to be someone special, I think, in the next couple of years. He's already done some nice things, and they return a nice mix, a very a team senior heavy, Colin Fabio, Ryan Keene, Alex Schwartz on the mound, Matt Woods on the mound. So, they're a team right now that they hit the ball up and down the lineup. They've got pitching, and, right now their confidence is sky high. They're scoring runs. So they've got 6 games in. A lot of teams some teams, like you said, like AC's got 1. So right now Eastern's playing very good baseball. And I think when it comes to Group 4, until somebody knocks them off, they're the team to beat.
Changing at the guard at Williamstown this year, Joe Smith takes over there, and you had a nice feature on that team as well. What were your impressions of Coach Smith and the Williamstown program this year?
Yeah, I think Williamstown comes in a little under the radar. They lost a couple of guys from last year's team, and obviously anytime you bring in a new coach, there's going to be a transition period to some degree. But Joe's very familiar with Williamstown. He was a long-time coach at Delsey before leaving about 6-7 years ago, but he's very much in tune with what's going on in South Jersey baseball. And I think as far as that team's concerned, he'll do a real nice job with them. It may take a little bit of time to come together, but they're off to a 3-1 start. And, I think like Joe had said in the story that Joe, he, other than being 4-0, he couldn't ask for much more. So I think, Williamstown is definitely a team to, they're going to be competitive. I don't know if they're going to win a sectional championship or reach a sectional final, but I think they're definitely going to be competitive on a daily basis.
We have the Grand Slam Tournament Championship game coming up later on today from Washington Township, 2 o'clock start, and it's Millville against Northern Burlington there. Sort of an interesting matchup. I don't know if a ton of people outside the Millville program expected the Thunderbolts to get off to such a hot start, but, Buddy Kennedy, he's got some great baseball bloodlines, and, should be an interesting matchup there. 2 teams certainly making a lot of noise at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think with Millville, you got a team that once Mike Trout left, I think a lot of people thought maybe they were going downhill, but they're they haven't had the same type of success in the last couple of years. Maybe they've had a handful of losses more than they maybe should have, but they're a team right now that's going to be on the rise. It's going to get better, and Buddy Kennedy, obviously a sophomore, is going to be one kid to follow. Don Money, who played for the Phillies back in the 70s. Is one of his grandsons, and what people in Millville are going to see today out of a team like Northern Burlington is a team that hits the ball up and down the lineup. This team is extremely strong from top to bottom. They've got Division I baseball players at almost every position, and Ryan Shin, left-hander, he threw earlier in the week. I'm expecting he'll probably throw today. If Northern Burlington really wants to win this tournament, they may hold them back because of conference games next week. But Ryan Shin is a player going to Florida Gulf Coast University, and was an All-South Jersey outfielder 2 years ago, a second-teamer last year, and he really helps keep that team motivated and has it go. So you watch Northern Burlington play, they hit the ball hard, they hit the ball to the gaps, they like to run the bases, and they're aggressive. So Millville's going to obviously have to play one of its best games to beat Northern, but we're so early in the season that pretty much anything can happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if Millville does win the game as well.
Kevin Minnick of the Courier Post, our guest right now on the South Jersey Sports Report, 97.3 ESPN FM. Kevin, I'm looking through your baseball notebook for the Courier Post this week, and, a big milestone win for Del Rand coach Rich Bender, who's been doing it a long time.
Yeah, Rich Bender, I believe it's his 40th season, and he's the only coach Del Rand's ever had. Came in and started the program, and he's been retired as a teacher for a long time, but has been fortunate enough that the administration there has kept him on as a coach. And, Rich is a veteran baseball guy, and you don't have very many guys who have been around as long as he has. Lee Ware at Woodstown, 42 years, and a couple other guys in their 30th season or so. But as far as the dedication to the game and getting the most out of his kids that he can, Rich Bender has obviously done a nice job with better than 600 wins. I believe only the third coach, 3 coaches in South Jersey history have only had 600 wins, and he's second right now behind Lee Ware. and Russ Spicer, a longtime coach at 4 different schools in South Jersey, over 600 as well. So you got to put in your time, and you got to be very dedicated to your job and love your job to be around as long as Rich Bender has. And he obviously gets, like I said, gets the most out of his kids.
We've hit on a number of these teams so far, but help us break down right now for you your Courier Post top 15 teams in South Jersey. Obviously, there's a handful we haven't talked about. Some programs that have really gotten off to hot starts, and you expect those teams to contend well into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the top 3, and the top 3 are probably, even the top 5 or 6 will probably remain the same. Gloucester Catholic, I think, is still clearly South Jersey's best team until we see somebody in South Jersey knock them off, and followed by St. Augustine and Bishop Eustace, and then you got some public schools in there, Northern Burlington, Buena, Eastern. They're all teams that I think are going to be there all season long. They're probably going to, they may have a hiccup here and there and a loss here or there, but, I think they're still going to be the teams that we're going to see at the end of the season, and, quality teams, come the end of the year.
Buena, one of those teams, too, that was in the news last week, and, this is sort of old news by now, but I didn't get a chance to talk to you about it, and, it's a tough deal. They play a team in Pleasantville that was just a little bit overmatched, and, the score is very lopsided. I believe it was 52-3, and I don't know what the answer is in terms of avoiding stuff like that in the future. And we talked about it last week. You have to get outs in baseball. There's no clock. I mean, is there a solution to this? Do rules need to be changed based on games just like that?
Mike, I don't know if rules need to be changed, but, there are ways to make sure that game didn't reach 52-3. And, I wasn't around to see it. I was away, and I'm just, from what I had picked up on from other people and reading things, that Pleasantville obviously was having problems throwing strikes. Buena, was taking walks and really trying to just move station to station. So, I understand that the manner in which they kind of went about it was maybe at the time the best that they thought of. But there's clearly ways that game should have never been that far out of reach. And what people will disagree with me and say, they did what they could, but the strike zone gets expanded. Anything's a strike. You swing at every pitch. At that point, forget about the integrity of the game attitude. You need to get the game over with. Both, and I don't know if it happened, but at that point, both coaches need to get together with the umpire. This game, Pleasantville was not going to come back and win that game. So, you get together, the coaches get together with the umpire, you discuss the situation, and you find a way to end the game. Both teams know what's going on. It was no secret. And, I just think, once you reach 20 runs, if it's 20-0 or 20-2, this game is over. And there's no need to go on and make it worse and open yourself up for discussion. I mean, it could have been a done deal at 20 runs. So, like I said, I wasn't there. That's my take on it, though. There are clearly ways that you don't have to score runs and put that game away way earlier than that.
If I'm not mistaken, softball, I believe, high school softball in the state, it's a 15-run rule, but that's not in place for baseball. So you can't see us going in that direction for baseball? You don't think that's really needed?
Well, I mean, I think situations like this are far and few between. I mean, it doesn't happen all that often where you get a team that will dominate the game by close to 50 runs. There's been games where teams have won by 18 or 20 runs. Maybe they score 6 runs in an inning, 7 runs in an inning, 8 runs in an inning, and now all of a sudden you're looking at 20. I don't know that there's a way to cut a baseball game down to 3 innings. But, maybe there needs to be a rule put in place that, if the lead reaches a certain point, then we start thinking about it. And, maybe if it is a 20 run spread after 3 innings, that, okay, the 4th inning is going to be the last inning. So, I think you want to give every team an opportunity to come back, but there are obviously certain situations where it's just not going to happen. So maybe the rules need to be tweaked a little bit, to set up a situation where, like I said, if the lead is a certain spread at a certain point, then maybe, okay, let's call it at that point. But, like I said before, there are clearly ways to make sure your team doesn't score 50 runs.
All right, we'll put that issue to bed for now. But, Kevin, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about this. And we've talked to a few coaches that have been on trips so far this morning. It seems like every year more of these teams go south, whether it's South Carolina or Florida or even some teams going up to Cooperstown. But how much of these team trips, how much has that become a part of, just your average baseball season? 10, 15 years ago, you didn't see a lot of teams taking trips, but, the fundraising efforts, it's a big deal now. And in talking to Mike McGarry earlier on, kids expect when they go to a program, hey, I'm going to get a chance to go on a few of these trips. Has that changed the look of early season high school baseball in South Jersey?
Like you said, more and more teams are doing it, and to be honest with you, I think it's a great idea. If these schools, basically, if these schools can raise the funds outside of their own budgets from their school, through their booster clubs, through fundraising, then why not go down? It's a great opportunity for the teams to bond early. It's a great opportunity to get out of this weather that we always go through in April. It's no secret. April baseball is brutal. It is absolutely brutal. You get nice days here and there, but really until May, you got to keep a jacket in the car. And why not let these teams go down, play against some other teams from areas who have already played games, from teams that maybe have already played 16, 18 games in the South, and see what you're made of, and get out and test yourself. And then when you come back, you settle into your conference schedule, and you get back to work. So, I think it comes down to it's a matter of money, and if these teams can raise the money through booster clubs, raise their money through a car wash or candy sale or whatever it may be, then why not go? Most teams do it over their spring breaks, so it doesn't conflict with school. They're not missing school. If they do, then maybe they're missing a day, which I think in the long run is probably not that big of a deal. So why not get an opportunity to go down, play in some warm weather for a little bit, bond together as a team, see what baseball is like in the South, see what baseball is like in Cooperstown, if that's the direction you go, and enjoy yourself, and then realize, okay, we learned a little bit about ourselves. We're a little bit better. We're tighter as a team now. It's time to go to work, and we get back to to our conference schedules.
All right, Kevin Minnick from the Courier Post. Appreciate the insight as always. We'll try and catch up with you again very soon. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks again. I appreciate the time.
All right, Kevin Minnick from the Courier Post helping